Really excited to have Javier Zamora coming to us today from the Cambridge area. His first collection, Unaccompanied, published by Copper Canyon Press last year, explores how immigration and civil war have impacted his life and family. In a 2014 interview with the National Endowment for the Arts, Zamora said, "I think in the United States we forget that writing and carrying that banner of being a poet is tied into a long history of people that have literally risked their lives and died to write these words." After selecting Javier as winner of the 2017 Narrative Prize, editor Tom Jenks said, "Insinuous plain song that evokes the combined strengths and bright celebrations and the dark sorrows of two Americas sharing and transcending borders. Javier Zamora's verse affirms human commonality and aspiration." Zamora holds a BA from the University of California, Berkeley, where he studied and taught in June Jordan's Poetry for the People program. Zamora earned an MFA from New York University and was recently a 2016 to 2018 Wallace Stegner Fellow at Stanford University. He has been granted fellowships from Contamundo, Colgate University, McDowell Artist Colony, the National Endowment for the Arts, Poetry Foundation, and YAWP. He is a recipient of a 2017 Lannan Literary Fellowship, the 2017 Narrative Prize, and the 2016 Barnes & Noble Writer for Writers Award, and his poems appear in Poetry, the Kenyon Review, the New York Times, and elsewhere. He is a member of the Our Parents' Bones campaign, whose goal is to bring justice to the families of the 10,000 disappeared during El Salvador's Civil War. As I mentioned, he lives in Cambridge now, where he is a 2018 to 2019 Radcliffe Institute Fellow at Harvard University. So give a warm welcome to Javier Zamora.
How's everybody doing? Can you hear me? In the back? All right. Thank you, Jason, for inviting me and for always supporting me. Yeah, let me put the timer on so I don't bore you. It is awfully quiet. Y'all like intense. It's a beautiful day out. It's a beautiful campus. I've never been out here. Okay, now we'll start with the poems. I'll begin with a poem that I always begin every reading with, and it's a poem to my grandma. It's the first poem in the book. Tu abuelita Nelly. This is my 14th time pressing roses in fake passports, for each year having climbed Marañón trees. I'm sorry I've lied about where I was born. Today, this country chose its first black president. Maybe he changes things. I've told Mom I don't want to have to choose to get married. You understand. Abuelita, I can't go back and return. There's no path to papers. I've got nothing left but dreams where I am the parakeet nest on the Flor de Fuego, the paper boats we made when streets flooded, or toys I buried by the foxtail ferns. Do you know the ferns I mean? The ones we planted the first birthday without my parents. I'll never be a citizen. I'll never scrub clothes with pumice stones over the big cement tub under the almond trees. Last time you called, you said, my old friends think that now I'm from some town between this bay and our estero, and that I'm a coconut, brown on the outside, white inside. Abuelita, please, forgive me, but tell them they don't know shit. Let's see. So, for a while, for a long time, I did not have a green card. I had this other thing that you probably have heard about, TPS. Now under this administration, like nobody knew about it before. Now everybody, I know what TPS is. But that's a terminal, like you can't get citizenship once you have that. Like you have it, you're legal to work. I would renew it at first it was 2 years, then it was 18 months, and then it became a year. So this is like a process that I had to do. And when I was going to college, I didn't qualify for FAFSA, Pell Grants, or anything, so I had to work at the same time. And so because of poetry, actually, I qualified for this weird fucking visa called Extraordinary Abilities. And so I guess I'm fucking extraordinary. And I recently got it on 7/11/20 18. And it's weird because before, the last poem in the book, there's a date. Like as an immigrant, you always remember and are asked the date, which is that you have to know your birthday. And then you also have to know the date in which you crossed the border. So for me, that was June 10th. But now, I never realized I would have to memorize a third date, which is 7/11. So I celebrated with Boost Lushies. And I'll read this one. And on the way up here, I was unaccompanied, and that term is weird because these children are not alone, you know? They find people that help them along. And so for me, ironically enough, one of those people that helped me was a ex-MS-13 who was a gangster who was fleeing. And if it wasn't, he was a teenager. He wasn't an adult, he was a teenager. And I know he was MS-13 because he had tattoos. And I don't know his name, and all I know about him is his nickname. And his nickname was Chino, and his poem for him. Second attempt crossing. In the middle of that desert that didn't look like sand and sand only. In the middle of those acacias, whiptails, and coyotes, someone yelled, "La migra," and everyone ran. In that dried creek where 40 of us slept, we turned to each other and you flew from my side in the dirt. Black-throated sparrows and dawn hitting the tops of mesquites. Against the herd of legs, you sprinted back toward me. I jumped on your shoulders and we ran from the white trucks, then their guns. I said, "Freeze, Chino, para por favor." So I wouldn't touch their legs that kicked you. You pushed me under your chest and I've never thanked you. Beautiful Chino, the only name I know to call you by. Farewell, your tattooed chest, the M, the S, the 13. Farewell, the phone number you gave me when you went east to Virginia and I went west to San Francisco. You called twice a month. Then your cousin said the gang you ran from in San Salvador found you in Alexandria. Farewell, your brown arms that shielded me then, that shield me now from La Migra. And now, what I write about is very depressing. And now that the book is done, I was like, damn, this is a sad-ass fucking book. And so this is my attempt at trying to not be depressing, so I might have failed. But somebody told me about this meme of a dog that talks funny. I forget the name of it. But he says things like, much good. They're like, shit like that. What's it called? Doge. The Doge dog. So this is a poem in Doge. And it's titled, La Globalization, Much Good, Very Well. Having discovered otters hold hands while sleeping, cute, much adorable, the government needed a research question to grasp the free market. Scientists asked for much money to answer, but why do otters hold hands? Neoliberals passed budget cuts. Socialists picketed to save the much sad mangrove forest. Thousands fled north, hundreds south. The president demanded many kelp, many urchins, sending much love to otters from president who was cousins with 2 senators, many fortunes. You're very good, primos, one told the other. We much concerned with environment. We buy less threatening, less curious animal to our waters. Much applause, much approval rating, more high for president. A market bump after bill signed. Hashtag much money, hashtag parade. Many floats, many people half naked, not working. Confetti, balloons, much trash, many trampled, news, retweet, trending, much sad, very bad.
Still pretty depressed.
Yeah, right? Well, shit, this is attempted funny as you're gonna get. Let's see. Now, let's go. I really read from this one. Now back to, so if you've ever been in the border, you're familiar with the booth that you have to cross if you try to drive across. And one of the most weird images that I saw was being in the Nogales, the Mexican part of Nogales, and there's literal booth, and then the fence begins there. And then seeing American citizens who are homeless walk from the American side into the Mexican side, buy food on this side, and then go back without having to show any form of ID, because it was known that they were citizens, but we couldn't do that. And so this is a poem trying to understand that image. Citizenship. It was clear they were hungry, with their carts empty, the clothes inside their empty hands. They were hungry because their hands were empty, their hands in trash cans. The trash cans on the street, the asphalt street on the red dirt, the dirt taxpayers paid for up to that invisible line, visible thick white paint, visible booth, visible with the fence starting from the booth. Booth, road, booth, road, booth, road, office building, then the fence, 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 fence. It started from a corner with an iron pole, always an iron pole at the beginning. Those men, those women could walk between booths, say hi to white or brown officers, no problem. The problem, I think, were carts, belts, jackets. We didn't have any, or maybe not the problem. Our skin sunburned, all of us spoke Spanish. We didn't know how they had ended up that way, on that side. We didn't know how we had ended up here. We didn't know, but we understood why they walked the opposite direction to buy food. On this side, we all know is hunger. I'll read it. Again, this is not really a love poem, but that's as close to love as I could get. And it's Exiliados. And it's awkward now because it's for my ex. Exiliados. We didn't hold typhoons or tropics in our hands. I didn't reach across the table on our first date at Cornelia's Street Cafe. In my humid pockets, my fists were old tennis balls thrown to the stray dog of love, bouncing toward the Hudson down to South Barry. We didn't hold hands in that cold October wind, but the waves witnessed our promise to return to my cratered, deforested homeland, and you to your parents sometime in the future. Then, us in the subway at 2 a.m. Oh, the things I dreamed. A kiss to the back of your neck, collarbone, belly button, there. To kneel and bow my head, then return to the mole next to your lips and taste your latitude together. Instead, I went home. You touched my cheek. It was enough. I stood remembering what it's like to stand on desert dirt, wishing stars would fall as rain on that huge, dark country ahead of me. And let's do some new shit. Let's see if it works. I read it. This is the second time I read this. And I think I had to write something regarding what's happening in the news. And yeah, it's an emulation of a poem by this really dope poet from Chile. From Chile, Nicanor Parra. And his original is Soliloquy of the Individual. And it pretty much sounds the same. Same length, it's kind of long, but there. It doesn't have a title. I am a migrant kid. First, I lived near the mud. There, I carved some things. Then, I found a well to drink. I am a migrant kid. I had to climb trees, gather food, tread into the mud, find mollusks, find a knife, eat them raw. Later, I worried about firewood, pots to cook. I am a migrant kid. At the same time, I asked, where did my parents go? Where? There? I walked to another tree, another shore. Where are they now? I am a migrant kid. I tried to leave, yet to another shore. There, I carved more. My face, my parents, a crocodile. I am a migrant kid. But no, I got tired of playing, of imagining. I wanted to see more. I walked along the shore, found a river inland, found a road. I am a migrant kid. I found what I needed there. Found more like me, a bunch of us waiting for more of us to flee. A tribe, a small village. I am a migrant kid. I saw there were rules, clothes kept dry in plastic bags, phone numbers written inside pants. They also made fire, carved things into the mud. I am a migrant kid. They asked, where did you come from? I pointed, there. Said I didn't have plans. They answered, bienvenido, tapped their feet on the dirt. I am a migrant kid. I broke a small stick from a tree next to the road, began sharpening it, made a tiny me, but I was too long, carved me more. Then I got too small, threw me away, looked for different things as we walked on the road. Then along the road, through the forest, through the mountains, I looked for mud, for frogs, for there they are. We played our favorite game until I got bored again. I am a migrant kid. Nights are boring. Fireflies, boring. Stars, the moon. I am a migrant kid. Well, I began to let myself think. Stupid things came to mind. Countries, nationalities, passports. Then I walked away from everyone, toward the mountains. Got to a tree, then another one, got to a river, a beach, where I saw some rats. Have you seen the tribe? A savage bunch that makes street fires from trash. In a hurry, they chased after me. I ran north. Found a few others, or maybe it was just me. To eat, you have to believe, they said. Handed me something in the dark. I am a migrant kid. Saw pizza in the dark, hamburgers, clouds maybe clouds. I saw fireflies. A few days had passed. I felt like an empty road. I invented machines, planes, a teleporter, fast cars. I am a migrant kid. I barely had time to learn their names. I barely had time to say goodbye. I am a migrant kid. Years later, I filled some forms, wrote my name, and woke up in a bed that had traveled 56 days, 56 nights. I am a migrant kid. Then came an election. The war continued. More kids kept coming, but I had to find work. I produced science. I produced books of 1,000 pages, found new truths. My hands got tired. Created spaceships, alternatives for plastic, flying cars soon to buy. I am a migrant kid. Someone segregated people. Trees were segregated. But I created tools, eradicated fences, jailed kings, bosses. I am a migrant kid. A replacement for countries was created. Citizenship, a thing of the past. We looked for purpose, happiness. I am a migrant kid. I could travel anywhere, learned new customs, languages. I am a migrant kid. I looked through a window. Yes, I looked. What can I say? I looked. So I could be certain I broke through the curtains. I am a migrant kid. Maybe I'll return to that well, and then I'll begin carving the mud again. I'll carve the whole fucking world backwards. But no, maybe not. Migrating has no reason, no direction. I am a migrant kid. I'll end on that depressing note with what I hope is a celebration of my death. And all y'all are invited. Whenever I die, this is what I want y'all to do. And there's Spanish, all you need to know at the end, there are flowers. And there's a reference to my favorite poet, Roque Dalton. And Estero de Jaltepec is the bay where I was born. Instructions for my funeral. Don't burn me in no steel furnace. Burn me in Abuelita's garden. Wrap me in blue, white, and blue. A la mierda patriotismo. Douse me in the cheapest gin. Whatever you do, don't judge my home. Cut my bones with a machete till I'm fine as dust. Wrap my pito in pennies so I dream of pisar. Please, no crease, no crosses, no flowers. Steal a flask and stash me inside. Blast music, dress to impress. Please be drunk, miss work, y pisen otra vez. Bust out the drums, the army's drums. Bust out the guitars, guerrilleros strummed, and listen to the war inside. Please, no American mierdas. Carouse the procession dancing to the pier. Moor me in a motorboat. De veras que sea una lancha, driven by a 9-year-old son of a fisherman. Scud to the center of the Estero de Jaltepec. Read como tú and toss pieces of bread. As the motorboat circles, open the flask, so I'm breathe like a jacaranda, like a flor de mayo, like an alcatraz. Then forget me and let me drift. Thank you. And I guess questions?
So a lot of your, or I guess like a good amount of your work includes a bit of English and a little bit of Spanish. So what, like, how do you decide which you want to use for what?
It's not, at first it wasn't like an intentional decision. It was just like how I talk. And then at one point in writing the book, I liked the idea of including, so the Spanish that I include is Salvadoran Spanish. And so if you're Salvadoran, you speak different than like Mexican or like any other place. So even my accent marks are different. And so then it became intentional. Kind of like a, if you know, you know type of thing. I'm with you. And also I like the idea of Spanish being asking the readers if you don't know that word for you to do the work. And now we have Google and shit, so if you are too lazy to even Google what that shit means, then so I feel like the internet has made it easier for people to not translate things that are untranslatable. Yeah. You.
What's your process of picking poems to read when you go to events like this?
I used to have like a set, and then like this book has been out for like a year, and even before that, there's like poems that I've read too much, so I was like, fuck it. So now I'm like trying to read newer shit, and also switch it up. Like I rarely read the love poem. I always start with the same one, and end with the same one, but everything in between changes. Yeah, so it's like whatever I feel. That's why you sound like flip through stuff. Yeah. But I used to have a set, but now I'm bored of it.
So why begin and end with the same one? You're not bored of it?
No, because I don't. The first one's to my grandma, and it's like for like 19 years I didn't see her, and I think the book is like my love for her that made me write the book to begin with. And the last one I wrote in a very depressing time when I was like 19, when I thought that I would never go back to El Salvador unless I was in a coffin. But I don't know, I also like the idea of people having sex and drinking on my funeral. You know, missing work, getting so fucked up that they miss work. So I like that as a celebration. Yeah.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, sometimes when I write, I think about maybe implementing Spanish, but then I worry, like, well, like, someone who doesn't know Spanish is reading it, they're not gonna understand it. Like, how do you keep that balance of, like, how do you get someone who doesn't know Spanish to, like, understand what you're saying, even if you don't outright explain it, if that makes any sense?
The internet. No, but so I have, before I published this shit, I published like this little chapbook. And I think it was a learning experience because at the end of it, I included a glossary. And now looking back, that's so whack. Because I was worried about this thing, like, oh my God, they're not gonna understand even what a pupusa is, you know? And I even translated, like, I explained what the fuck a pupusa was. And then I was like, ugh. Like a year after, like, what the fuck am I doing that at work? You know? And also reading other, especially in fiction. Like, I don't know, Junot Díaz's name is bad to say nowadays, but Junot Díaz really influenced, like in that novel that won a fucking Pulitzer, he does not translate Spanish at all. And that to me was like an aha moment. It was like, oh shit, I don't have to translate. And so now I don't, and I don't even think about it. So I'll encourage you to not think about it and just do the thing, you know, if it's natural to you. Yeah.
Since your book has been out for about like a year now, what, like when you go back and read certain parts of it, do you ever think to yourself like, oh, like I wish I didn't include this part, or oh, I wish I included this part of my life in it? Do you ever like go back and kind of like want to make changes to your book?
All the time. I'm very obsessive. If you were to look at the poems that I published online, the same poems, even in like fancy magazines, they're not the same in the book. Because I'm like super obsessive of trying to get it right. And sometimes I fuck it up more. Sometimes I think there are versions here that are worse than the ones that I had already published online. I would cut the book, I think it's too long. I would cut like 10%, 20% of it. So yeah, this is like, but you learn. Because I'm obsessive, the date of when the book was gonna get published kept on moving back. So I was like, I'm not ready. But I think it's also because I'm dealing with like my own trauma, and I didn't want to let it go. But now after publishing, I'm like, now I'm like more like even more ruthless at cutting stuff. But also now I'm thinking more. I used to just send stuff out once I published it, and now I'm like, no, I have to like. It has changed my process. Now I need to really work on it before I send it out. I don't know. And I also wish I would have included more joy, more funny shit even though like I'm attempting to be funny and it still fails. But yeah, that's where I want like the second book to go towards. Yeah. Or even offering something. Like I don't know if I'm gonna keep the version of the long poem that I read, but I read an earlier version that stopped, and then I kept going, and I might cut the last section, but I included the last section in order to offer something that's not only despair. Yeah. But despair is also necessary.
I know that you recently went back to El Salvador. Two things. One, can you tell a little bit about what it was like to go back, and also have you written any poems regarding that experience?
Prose. It's coming out in prose. And actually, if everything aligns, you can read that prose this Sunday in the New York Times. So I have an op-ed coming out for the Sunday review. And it's about that. It's about having to go back for this visa that I received. So ironically, I couldn't interview here. I had to go back to the country that I was scared to go back to and spend 4 weeks there. And it was very dehumanizing, and it was very strange. There's a lot of longing in this book, but I think I didn't understand that I wasn't longing for the country as a whole. I was longing for childhood. I was longing for the time that I missed. I feel like I missed out in my own childhood because I had to go through something very fucking dramatic when I was 9. And now going back, you can think that, a lot of immigrants say, oh, I'm not from here and not from over there. It's something to think about it and intellectualize it. It's something different to feel that. Even though I was born over there, while I was over there, I was like, fuck, I do not fucking belong here. I do not want to be here. I don't feel safe. I'm not from the capital. The capital has gotten safer. I'm from the rural area. And I did not leave. Everybody locks their doors at 8 p.m. There were I was woken up by gunshots 5 times. 5 people were murdered. A person was killed 2 blocks away from where I lived the week before I got there. So the amount of violence in a very small country of only 7 million people is ridiculous. And I think that's why people are leaving. Like, you hear a lot about the caravans. Another caravan just left from El Salvador on Tuesday. Because life is not life for them. Yeah. So I'm still processing it, and it hasn't come out in poems. I don't know why.
It's just too raw right now.
Yeah.
I see how your poetry can be very impactful and relatable to a lot of people. So to follow that up, I was wondering if you had anyone like during these sort of presentations come up to you and explain like how this has impacted them.
Yeah. Just 2 days ago, somebody, and this is like, I love when the poetry, like, you never think if what you're writing is ever gonna find your intended audience, or even what your intended audience is. Like, I had no idea. I didn't like expect to be published. But somebody who works with recent migrants, like refugee children in the Boston area for Kind, it's like, actually, this is like the double shit Angelina Jolie has actually done. So she like helped find these kids in need of defense. And they're taking a lot of these cases and helping the refugee children get a lawyer and representing them. So they teach my work, and the children really appreciate, because they finally see themselves on the page. And she was like, thank you. She was like, it was like, fuck, And another similar story that I never forgot, like the week that the book came out, somebody who worked in the restaurant industry, she had this coworker who she didn't even know was from El Salvador. And she she was reading my book, and then the coworker's like, hey, I don't know, the cover is very dramatic. And then she was like, hey, what are you reading? And she's like, oh, this is like a book by Salvador. And she's like, I'm from El Salvador. And then she's like, can I borrow it? So she borrowed it. And then she opened up about that she had gone through a similar experience like 10 years ago. The thing, interactions like that. And they have happened a lot more than I expected. Sometimes in the MFA or like getting a master's to write, you forget what or who could benefit from the poem. So, yeah.
What was your hardest adjustment when you came to the United States?
Food.
Besides language, maybe.
Food. Food and space. So, again, yeah, my country is very fucked up, but also is beautiful. And that's what I remember going back. It was fucking beautiful. And I was lucky because I'm from a rural area. I grew up with mango trees, coconuts, pomegranates, pineapples, like fucking 7 types of bananas in my backyard. And I could just go to my backyard and pick it and eat it. And when I got here, the idea I think that also a lot of immigrants have still, I think there is a truthful sense of naivete of coming to this country, even to this day. I expected like Full House, United States, like Kermit the Frog and shit, and like to live in a house. But my parents, that was not their reality. They're undocumented immigrants who lived in an apartment who shared a 2-bedroom apartment with like 4 other people. So I was very, constricted, and I hated it, and the food was whack. And so those were the biggest adjustments.
When did you know that you wanted to publish and share your experiences? Was there a specific moment, or was it over time?
It was over time. When I wanted to write, I think the moment was at a protest. I wrote, but I never read it out loud. It was just for me. And then I happened to go to Berkeley, and during the time when there was a lot of protests regarding tuition hikes. And then I just stood up and read a poem. And I was like, I fucking like this shit. And that was the beginning. I was like, okay, now I'm gonna do this shit. And publishing, I went to this fancy conference called Red Loaf when I was 20. So I was underage, and I had never met so many writers. And they had a party. And I had a fucking blast in fucking Vermont. And I was like, holy shit, these are some of the coolest people that I fucking ever met. And they published, they have books. I want to fucking do that thing. And now I'm here. But it was that, interacting with other writers that I didn't know were alive, with other people that were trying to do the same shit that I was trying to do. That I was like, okay, here we go. Finding your tribe, finding your people.
Did you ever think that in writing that it would bring you to the O visa?
No. No. But ironically, so I used to play soccer, and the plan the very naive plan was that I was gonna be so good that the United States national team was gonna get me a fucking visa. So that's what I wanted. But it didn't work out. And then the moment that I got recruited by D3s, but I didn't get recruited by D1s, I was like, fuck it. I'm gonna go to Cal and try to walk on, but I never did. It was this huge, the biggest regret that I ever had. And then I think because of that loss, once I started writing, okay, I'm gonna fucking do this shit, and I'm gonna be hungry for it, and it's paid off. Yeah, and it was complete luck. Like I got the, I think it was after I got the NEA that this lawyer firm hit me up. They're like, by the way, do you know that we can help you? I was like, no. Like, say more. Like, yeah, you can do this and that.
It's not luck, it's that you have an extraordinary talent that contributes to the benefit of the United States.
Yeah,
So,
but it's
not
also I have problems with the terminology of it and the whole idea that the good immigrant versus the bad immigrant.
Right.
You know, just because I'm, I guess, fucking extraordinary doesn't mean that like that my parents aren't. You know, my mom was a nanny and my dad was a landscaper. I think they also deserve, you know, a path to citizenship. But yeah, I'm very fucking grateful.
Well, thanks so much for coming and for reading. I'm sure everyone's thinking it. I just wanted to say it on behalf of everyone. It strikes me that your book seems super timely because it came out right before sort of the shit hit the fan with respect to, you know, family separation and this like caravan business. But these migration patterns have been growing over a long period of time and building. So it must be sort of great to be so timely, but it comes with a strange sort of obligation or responsibility because people must be, I would assume, starting to sort of look to you to say, like, tell us about Central America, tell us what this is all like. So I guess I want to know how things have changed for you in the course of the year and sort of like how you've responded to that weird sense that you're supposed to like represent a group of people.
I was rejected, but actually I got this fellowship at Harvard for something that I hadn't written. I just wrote like a proposal, so I haven't done shit. But like the proposal, and I've been doing work. This whole idea of what gets seen, and my new obsession is this case of the Cuban boy Elian Gonzalez in 1999, and that was right after Monica Lewinsky. This was the biggest. There was perhaps the first time that Americans learned about the immigration system, and there's something that happened that I think shaped Americans' ideas of migration. Cubans, once it's like the wet foot policy. Once they come here, they get papers, and that's what kept on saying. Like that term of legality was never a thing regarding migration, and like literally every news outlet was focused on this for months. It was like this huge telenovela fiasco, and what Americans heard was like, a kid comes, he has papers, legal, and I feel like that's why, if you ask any Americans to this day, they're like, well, why don't you go and like apply for a citizenship? It's not that easy. But the media and this case shaped our understanding of the migration system. So there's that, but also the idea of being, once you have the spotlight on, what do you do with it? And I think what happens, and what has happened time and time again, and I am a product of that, is this obsession with children. Where are the children? What about the children? But what about the fucking parents? You know? And what happens is like the spotlight. The spotlight gets on the children and it erases everything else. It darkens everything else. And the moment that a child, literally, the moment that a child turns 18, they're done. They can never apply for the refugee visa. So the clock is ticking. If the child migrated here when they were 17 3/4, the window is so small for them to get this visa. So a lot of them are fucked. And why do we feel a need to help children and children only and not everybody else? So I think that is also a result of why this spotlight and this obsession by the media and human beings. And I don't know what to do with it, so I'm also questioning what you do once you're in the spotlight. And I think I do get like this fucking op-ed. I was like, holy shit, like, how the fuck do you learn my name? Like, because now it's like, oh, you're Central American, you're a poet. Tell me something about it. There's like consumption. It's like, I'm using you because you're hot right now. And there's like this weird shit that is nasty, and you feel from it. And I don't know. I'm trying to navigate it. Yeah.
Maybe one more.
So I was wondering, I think Michael asked earlier how you started incorporating Spanish into your writing, and I'm similar to that question, wondering how you started presenting your work in front of others, especially those groups that may not be representative, or those areas that may not be representative from different aspects of your identity.
What do you mean? Like to...
So whether it's being an immigrant, whether it's being from a different culture or subset of people altogether.
So presenting to...
Has it ever been uncomfortable presenting part of you that's very personal and vulnerable to an audience where you don't necessarily think there's that same connection?
Yeah. I went to this festival in Hartford. And this other festival outside, like in the middle of, in between Houston and Austin, Texas. And it was weird, because I was literally the only brown person in the room. And I felt nasty. And I felt like I was a product that I was being consumed. And it's only happened those 2 times. But and they were liberals, you know. There were people that were there, well-intentioned, but like it wasn't a politics thing. It was just like, again, the image and what is being seen and what is being consumed. And it didn't feel like it was an equal interaction. But on the other side, I think what poets, I think those interactions are sometimes necessary. And I think the most productive interactions that I had was I went to Kentucky, Lexington, Kentucky, a very red state in a very red county. And I spoke to 600 students, mostly white, mostly there was a lot of them were Republicans, and they came back, they stayed and they asked me a lot of questions. And a lot of them were like, holy shit, not in those words, but they're like, I had no idea. I had no idea that you couldn't just go and line up and get a citizenship. And I had no idea. And that for me, I felt like I was actually doing something. And it was around the time for TPS was getting repealed, we had just came out that it was gonna get repealed. And I had them, I gave them I looked at their representative's number, and a lot of them were writing it down, and I hope that they called. So things like that, there's all 3 similar situations, but one of them was, I don't know, I got more from it than the other ones. But that happens, and I never expected things like that to happen. It's like a wide spectrum of shit once you're behind, podium, and just making sure, now accepting things in which those things do not happen again. Thank you.